Man, can you believe it? I was stuck in the ocean for so long, I didn't even realize a full month and a half had passed since then. Anyways, now that I'm back at my place, I think it's safe for me to finally do what I was meant to do. Review video games. And what better game to review than the original Super Mario Bros. So strap in and enjoy this review of Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Mario. It's a name I think everyone and their grandmother has heard of at least one point in their life. Whether it be through games, merchandise, TV shows, movies, cereal, theme park attractions, I think it's safe to say that Mario is, and always has been, one of the most iconic characters of our time. An example of this is the recent success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, grossing over $1 billion in the worldwide box office. Let me drop the act real quick. It's clear that to this day, Mario is still one of the most iconic video game characters to be graced upon this earth. But it didn't necessarily start out like that at first, because in order to make it to the top, you gotta find a way to start climbing. With that said, let's take a trip back all the way to 1981 with the release of the original Donkey Kong arcade game. In 1981, Nintendo and Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to start advertising their games to the western side of the world. Initially, the game was going to center around the Popeye property, but due to licensing issues, the development team had to come up with completely original characters, not only to have them, but also to use in more titles after Donkey Kong's release. Thus led to the creation of Jumpman, who is now known as Mario or something else. I don't actually know, Mario lore is so confusing at times, oh my god. The game is simple, with it being recognized as one of the first platformers to release. The game featured 4 unique stages to play on and would loop back to the start after the set of stages was complete. Because of Donkey Kong's success around the world, Nintendo opted to make more titles with the characters from the Donkey Kong arcade game. That would include Donkey Kong, Jumpman, and Pauline. Games such as Mario Bros, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, and eventually Super Mario Bros., the game that kicked off the Super Mario branding as a whole, were released for the Famicom and the NES in 1985. Super Mario Bros. Was often considered one of the most revolutionary video games of its time, due to its gameplay, which not a lot of games had at the time. Hell, Super Mario Bros. Is kind of the sole reason as to why the video game market is still strong to this day, as the video game crash was still a fresh thing back in 1983, but after the release of Super Mario Bros. And also the NES, the video game industry significantly improved, allowing for video games in America to be more relevant. Super Mario Bros. Released on the NES on September 13, 1985, along with the launch of said console. Given that the game and also the NES helped to save the gaming industry from the video game crash of 1983, this is kind of an important game, and without one Italian plumber, who knows what would have happened to it. As for the game itself, it's probably one of the most influential games to ever exist. Sure, it may seem like a basic game, but revolutionizing a genre is insane to think about, especially when it's with this game. Now, with that out of the way, let's explain the plot, which can be found in the NES manual. Shoutouts to the official Japanese Nintendo site for providing this kind of info, by the way. I really appreciate it. One peaceful day in the Mushroom Kingdom, King Koopa, otherwise known as Bowser in the newer games, invades the Mushroom Kingdom, turning all the inhabitants, toads, into bricks and other things. Not only this, but Koopa also kidnaps Princess Toadstool, who's known as Peach in the more modern games. So now, it's up to Mario to stop Koopa's plans from taking over the Mushroom Kingdom. And that's the basic plot of Super Mario Bros. Games back in the day kinda had a simple plot, and when it came to the games that are possibly the first of their series, their plots are usually basic to likely set the story for future games, or rather, the lore for future games. As for the gameplay side of things, it's a side-scrolling platformer, the first of its kind actually. You can run and jump, and that's about it. Something to take note of is that while you can only run and jump in the game, if one were to collect these flowers called fire flowers, then with the run button you'll be able to throw a fireball in front of you. Other than that, the game is really basic. 32 levels, 100 coins for an extra life, and collecting a star to become temporarily invincible. The usual. I'm genuinely not lying when I say that this game revolutionized the side-scrolling platformer genre. Without this game, we wouldn't have games like Mega Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, Klonoa, Hollow Knight, the list goes on and on. Super Mario Bros. Has genuinely influenced gaming significantly, which is strange to think about considering it all started with this game. But anyways, there's 32 levels in this game, but players who are observant enough can actually find areas called warp zones, which can take them to worlds ahead of them. So in World 1-2, you can take a pipe down to World 4, and in World-4, apparently the most infamous level in the game, you can find the pipe for World 8, allowing players to beat the game in just under 5 minutes with the right strategies. Given how basic this game is, it's no wonder why a lot of game developers were influenced by it to make their own 2D platformers. Now before you ask, yes, Super Mario Bros. Does indeed have an ending. There are multiple ways you can reach this ending, whether it be getting through all 32 levels, or taking warp zones that can be found in multiple levels such as, like I said before, 1-2 and 4-2. 8-4 is the last level in this game. It's a castle level, but longer and more different. As you make your way through the castle, dodging each and every hurdle you face in your path, you eventually get to the real Koopa. Jump over him, grab the axe, and rescue Toadstool from the last castle, and the game is over. Super Mario Bros., while being revolutionary at the time, still has its flaws, but personally, I think that just adds to the charm of this game. Getting through the game in itself is rewarding, but when you learn more about its history and the impact it's had on video games as a whole, you begin to realize that maybe this game is alright. As a game that marked a very historic moment in gaming, I'd say give the game a look at if you can. It's available on a lot of stuff, but you're probably going to want to play it via the Nintendo Switch Online NES emulator. That's at least my recommendation, or, you know, just emulate it, I guess. Anyways, what else do we have on the list? Super Mario Bros. 2, that should be fun. No, we're not doing this. Get that screen out of here, god damn it. Oh, would you look at that, I'm a rat now. Not the weirdest thing to happen to me since... And more importantly, what happened to my normal outfit? You know. But whatever, I'm not complaining. Let's just get this shit over with already. With the success of Super Mario Bros., more sequels came out, a lot of them to count actually, whether they're spin-offs, mainline, or sub-series games. Featuring other characters, the Mario universe in itself continues to grow to this day. And while I'm here, let's talk about the sequel to the most revolutionary game on the NES. There's not really much to talk about here. It's just Super Mario Bros. But with harder levels and more bullshit thrown in. But for what it's worth, this generally feels like an updated version of the original game. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, or Super Mario Bros. 2 as it's called in Japan, is the sequel to the original NES game released now on the Famicom in 1986. The game was made using the same engine as the original Super Mario Bros., but updated. With new features such as a continue feature, poison mushrooms, and brand new levels thrown in as well, it's no surprise that this game would never be released in America for the longest time. I mean, Americans wouldn't have to wait too long. In 1993, Super Mario All-Stars was released on the Super Nintendo as part of a collection of the mainline Mario games. Super Mario Bros. 1, Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 3 were all a part of the collection, plus the Lost Levels, as I've mentioned before. Now, as I've stated before, the gameplay is relatively the same with a few tweaks here and there. And that's pretty much all you need to know about this game. The goal is the same, the power-ups are the same, the music is the same, it's just the same game overall. And personally, I wouldn't mind if this game never existed. 1 Super Mario Bros. On the NES is enough, 2 is just cutting it close. But that begs the question. This game was only released in Japan, so how did Americans ever experience Super Mario Bros. 2? Indeed, there was a Super Mario Bros. 2 in America. However, this was a reskin of Doki Doki Panic, a game that was exclusively released in Japan. I only want to touch on this topic briefly because honestly, this game and Super Mario Bros. 2 have a lot of differences with each other than just, did you know Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually Doki Doki Panic? Super Mario Bros. 2, also known as Super Mario USA in Japan, is the second Super Mario Bros. Game released on the NES. Released in 1988, Super Mario Bros. 2 has many new features in-game. These range from multiple playable characters, new enemies to face such as Shy Guys, Ninjas, and Sniffets, with brand new bosses such as Birdo, Mouser, and this crab thing. 20 levels, the ability to pick up things, bonus events. This game felt like a true definitive Super Mario Bros. Sequel. The only thing holding it back was that it wasn't originally a Mario game. But to me personally, I think this works better as a Mario sequel than Lost Levels. Do I recommend it? Sure. As a Mario game, it's a lot of fun and I personally would recommend it to anyone, as it truly feels like a canonical sequel to the original NES game that was released in 1985. I personally can't say the same for Lost Levels, but what are you gonna do? And that, my friends, was Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and Super Mario Bros. 2 all covered in one video. Albeit 2/3 of the games were shortly looked at, I intend on looking at the other games in the series soon. However, not for a while. I heard there was a new Mario game that was released not too long ago, and I eventually want to take a look at that. But then again, there's a lot more games that need to be talked about as well. It's like I probably said before, a reviewer's job is never done. So with that said, I'll see you all in the next video. Too cliche? Yeah, I think it was too cliche.